Hello, viewers and subscribers. Welcome to Blackford's Art of Learning. During today's lesson, we will be focusing on part 3 of our lesson on evaluating arguments. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So welcome to middle school once again. Today's quote is, "A little progress each day adds up to big results," by Satya Nani. Let us look at this anchor chart, which supports our lesson RI 6.8, evaluating argument. How to evaluate an argument? Argument should be evaluated based on whether or not it is good, not whether or not you agree. It should be objective. We can use this acronym FELT, the fabric of a good argument. And the F stands for fairness. Is it fair and balanced? Is it biased or too emotional? Evidence, is the evidence reliable and relevant? Logical, is the conclusion a logical result of the evidence? And tone, is the tone appropriate or too emotional, sarcastic, or serious? Let us watch a mini lesson on arguments and claims.
Word, which is argument. And you're like, oh, I know what an argument is. I had one of those today when my brother wouldn't let me in the bathroom to get ready for school. We're not talking about that kind of argument. For the purpose of arguments and claims, we are talking about when the author wants to convince you on their position. So they're either for or against a certain issue or subject. So let's say it was your birthday and you got, I don't know, $300 in birthday gifts, like $300 cash. And what you really want to do with your money is to buy like a brand name sweatshirt that costs $100. And your mom is like, absolutely not. You cannot spend that much money on a sweatshirt. I won't allow you to do it. And then you're like, but it's my money. I could do what I want to do with it. So what you might consider doing is writing a letter that convinces her that you should be able to spend your own money. So that would be an argument. When you're trying to convince somebody of your position, or when the author wants to convince you on their position. So with the sweatshirt, you're for spending your own money, and that's what your letter would be about. Claim would be your main point. So if we go back to the sweatshirt example, the main point would be the money was given to you, so you should be able to do what you want with it. So this is a statement that the author believes is true. And it must be a statement that can be argued. So if you think you can do what you want with your money, your adult might have a different perspective and they can argue that. So claims always need to be argued or could be argued. So arguments and claims are not just a subjective opinion. The opinion is also supported with evidence, facts, and data. So it's not just about what you want, you have to be able to back it up. But let's use some caution here, y'all. As a smart reader, you need to constantly evaluate the author's purpose and position. So you need to ask yourself, does the author include relevant information and evidence to support their claim? Does the author provide an opposing viewpoint? Is the author credible? Now, if you're looking at that kind of stuff and you're like, what is she talking about? Don't worry, I'm getting ready to define some of these vocabulary words to help you. The relevant evidence is what the author uses to support their claim. So these are facts, statistics, quotes, experts' opinions. So maybe you can, if we go back to the sweatshirt thing, you can find a quote from a financial advisor who says kids need to learn how to manage their own money. And that would be an expert quote to back up your claim. And it would be relevant evidence because it's coming from an expert, a financial expert. A counterclaim, on the other hand, is the opposite viewpoint of the author's claim. So it's what the other side would say. It is mentioned, so you're like, why would I bring up what the other person would say, what the other side would say? It is mentioned so the author can disprove it with stronger evidence that supports their claim. So it might be something like spending that type of money on a sweatshirt is frivolous, especially if you're going to outgrow it. That would be an opposite viewpoint. So signal words, so if you're reading and you're trying to find the opposite viewpoint, here's some words that will help you. So the opposing view is that, or some people think that, some people may say that, others may believe, fill in the blank. So whatever comes after these signal words is typically a counterclaim. So that's the opposite of what the author believes. And then after the counterclaim, we come in with a rebuttal. So that's when the author responds directly to the counterclaim. The author provides reasons why the counterclaim is not as strong as their claim. So here are signal words to let you know that a rebuttal is coming. They'll say something like, however, in contrast, even so, although. So if we go back to the sweatshirt example, the rebuttal might be, even so, teenagers should be allowed to learn how to manage their money so when they are adults, they can make responsible decisions. Our final word that we need to look at is credible. We need to decide, is the author credible? Is the evidence that they're using credible? So what does that mean? It means that the author is able to be believed and trusted. So what we need to look for, we need to look at the author's credentials and their background, where the article was published, is it cited, and reliable evidence used to support the claim. So now that we have all of the vocabulary under our belts, let's look at how to analyze an author's arguments and claims. So this is if you're reading an article, what steps do we need to do to figure out the claims and to analyze it? So here's a broad overview. These are the components of argumentative writing. First, you have the claim, and it answers the question, what does the author think? Then you have the reasons why the author thinks this. And then finally, the evidence, and it's how the author supports their case. So step one is to identify the claim. So what you need to do is highlight the author's main point. And this is usually in the first paragraph. They'll tell you why they are writing this article or this paper. Then you need to ask yourself, is the claim clear? Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? But be careful. It is not a question of if you agree or disagree with the author. It's, can you pick out the claim? Can you pick out the author's main point? It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with them. All right, step two, identify and analyze the evidence that the author uses. So what you're going to do is you're going to underline evidence that the author uses to support their claim. So again, this is facts, statistics, expert quotes that the author has included in their paper that makes their claim true. And then you need to ask yourself, is the evidence relevant? So does it match the claim? And is it credible? So does it have that backing that makes it strong? Or did they just find it off a blog post from 12 years ago. So after you do all that, you need to decide, did the author fully support their claim? Step 3, identify and analyze the counterclaim. So remember, counterclaim is what's the opposite viewpoint. So when you see the opposite viewpoint, you're going to write an X next to it, because that's a little signal for us to know that's the opposing viewpoint. And ask yourself, does the author acknowledge and address what the other side might say about their position? And then circle reasons and evidence the author provides in response to show their viewpoint is superior. So you're going to circle the rebuttal. Step 4, analyze the writing style. So pay attention to the techniques and elements that make the writing more convincing, persuasive, powerful. Now, not all arguments and claims articles have to be persuasive. Some are just factual. They're just giving you a side. Techniques that authors will use, they'll appeal to your emotions. They'll use like strong word choices, vivid language and imagery to create a mood. And then ask yourself, was the author persuasive, or was it just more of a factual article? So one final note, it is up to you as a good reader to think through the impacts of the arguments to determine if the author was successful or not. Look at their claim, look at the evidence, look at the rebuttal, and then decide, were they successful? Not do you agree with them, but were they successful in outlining their argument?
Okay, boys and girls, now it's time for you to share what you have learned from the lesson. We're going to pause the video and share out our responses. Now we're going to do a quick game, quizzes, to review evaluating arguments. So I'm going to generate a code that you're going to use to join the game. Okay, go ahead and enter your code on join quizzes. Okay, once all participants have joined, we can start the game. So Jane has successfully answered all 10 questions. She's in first place. Thank you for participating. Let us continue with our lesson. All right, we will be reading this text, Longer School Day, Expanded Learning Time, Pros and Cons. If you're using your iReady textbook, it can be found on page 176, 178. All right, so we're on class kick. Okay. I'm going to do a cold call to identify someone to read today. And usually when I say cold call, my students will respond, cold call, and they will not know who I will be selecting to read. So I'm going to choose Tom today. Read the article, then answer the questions that follow. Longer School Day, Expanded Learning Time, Pros and Cons by Bethany Bray, the Andover townsman. Arguments in favor. So these arguments that I'm going to read are in favor of longer school days. So one argument is that there's more time to cover the curriculum. I'm always hearing from teachers that there's not enough time. Superintendent Claudia Bosch said, we really need more time to do the academic things, not just extracurricular. The extra time allotted with ELT, expanded learning time, would allow teachers to expand current lessons, introduce special projects, provide new enrichment, and have time for more teacher workshops and development, supporters say. If you look at the curriculum, you say, oh my gosh, how can a teacher possibly get this done? ELT will allow us to do so much more for all our kids, said Brodheim, a High Plain Elementary parent. There's always room for improvement, and we have the luxury of being out front and being able to decide how we want to do it. The second argument is that it provides students global 21st century skills. Andover's looking at 21st century skills like cultural awareness, communication skills. For Andover, it's making education all it can be. The big vision is that the world is changing, education is changing, and how can the schools meet the needs of the children and society, said Lisa Glickstein, grant coordinator for the district. Kids are doing reading and math that we didn't do at their age. But Glickstein added, parents are justifiably concerned. We're still figuring out if this grant program is right for Andover. State money is growing. Although ELT grants guarantee money for only 1 year, school districts can reapply year after year, and preference is given to districts that have ELT programs, Glickstein said. ELT funding has increased substantially in the 3 years it's been offered by the state, Heim said. What started as 500,000 has increased to 13 million this year, and Governor Deval Patrick and Senator Edward Kennedy are in favor of ELT, he said. So remember that ELT is extended learning time. So these are the 3 arguments that they use to support longer school days. Number 1, more time to cover the curriculum. 2, provide students global 21st century skills. And 3, state money is growing. So you get more money if you have extended learning programs. Now we're going to look at the cons. And these are the arguments against. Well, let's finish up the previous section. With such tremendous support from our legislature, even in these economic times, ELT funding is being increased. Himes said, it's been funded because it works. Arguments against. If it ain't broke, why fix it? Andover is already one of the top districts in the state. In the past, ELT grants have helped underperforming districts such as Boston and Worcester with low state scores and high dropout rates, problems Andover does not have. Only 1 year of funding guaranteed. As the political atmosphere changes, there's no promise of long-term funding, said Karen Liu, a High Plain Elementary parent. Realistically, we cannot support this kind of budget long-term, and it's almost practically a certainty that funding would be dropped eventually. Lisa Glickstein, grant coordinator for Andover, said, it is legitimate concern that the grant will go away. There really is no way that the town budget would be able to support that amount of time in a long-term way. This takes time away from families. Bancroft Elementary mother Dawn Kalinowski, who also teaches at Pentucket Regional High School, believes ELT could eliminate the positive effect of parental involvement. We may be taking away the very thing that makes Andover such a great district, she said. She switched careers from engineering to teaching to have more time with her kids. Being able to put her kids on the bus in the morning is priceless, she said. Also, Andover parents, including Kalinowski herself, provide very specific extracurricular activities and lessons tailored to their children. School districts can provide something each youth likes. So those are the 3 arguments against extended learning time. If it ain't broke, why fix it? Only 1 year of funding guaranteed. It takes time away from families. Let's go ahead and answer the questions. What evidence does the article provide to support one claim in favor of adding expanded learning time? What's one claim in favor? Okay, so let's remember those claims in favor of it. More time to cover the curriculum, provide students global century skills, and state money is growing. We don't have to highlight those because they're already bolded. So let's go back to the question and see which of those is mentioned. So number 1, let's look at A. Andover schools are already top performers in the state. Was that a claim that was supported? No. So that's not a claim that was supported. So let's use the process of elimination. Okay. This was actually used to oppose rather than to be in favor of expanded learning time. So B, funding for longer school days is only guaranteed for 1 year. Was that evidence used to support one claim that is in favor of ELT? No, that also was opposing ELT. So that was one evidence that was used to oppose it rather than being in favor of it. So let's look at C. Is C correct? Some are convinced that ELT will encourage positive parental involvement. Was this even mentioned in the passage? No, this was not mentioned any at all. So this point was not used as an evidence to support the argument in favor of expanded learning time. So we are only left with D, which says more time is needed for current academic lessons and special projects. Yes, that was the first evidence that was presented. So let's go to number 2. What does the author include? Why does the author include the fact that the amount available for expanded learning time ELT programs has increased to 13 million? Why did the author include that this grant increased? Okay, let's look at the options, and remember we're using a process of elimination to figure out our answer. Is it A, it proves that starting an ELT program is a good way for Andover to raise money? Is that correct? Well, choice A is incorrect. The grants are meant to fund ELT programs, not to raise money for Andover. So that's incorrect. Let's look at B. It suggests that ELT programs are growing rapidly, so Andover should add 1. All right, so let's go back to the passage and find that information. Okay, so let's go back to the arguments for or in favor of. All right, so here it says ELT funding has increased substantially in 3 years. It's been offered by the state. Now it says it started at 500 and has increased to 13 million. So why did they include that statement? We can, B seems like it could be an option. So let's leave B and then we can return to it if possible. It shows that ELT is too expensive a program for Andover to fund on its own. Is that one correct? So choice C is incorrect. Increased funding suggests that Andover will not have to be the sole support of the program. So that one is incorrect. Let's look at D. It supports the idea that state funding for Andover's ELT program will not run out. So D is incorrect because current increases to grants does not guarantee funding in the future. So we cannot say it will not run out. So we are left with B, and B is our correct answer. Now let's look at number 3. Which statement best summarizes the arguments against expanded learning time? Against expanded learning time. So we're looking at all these arguments. If it ain't broke, why fix it? So in this one, they're saying if the school is already on top and doing well, why do we need to extend? Why do we need to extend the day? And then the second one, only 1 year of funding is guaranteed. It's not a guarantee that you'll get funding after the first year. And then the next one takes time away from family. If you extend the school day, students will spend less time at home with family. All right. So what's a summary? What's the best summary for the arguments against? Let's look at A. Andover should not begin ELT because Andover is a high-performing district. Yes, it mentioned that. The funding might run out. Yes, it also mentioned that because they claim that it might only last for a year. There's no guarantee that you'll get it a second time. And ELT takes time away from families. These 3 points were raised, but we still have to go through all the options to see if this is definitely the most suitable answer. So let's leave that one. Go to the next point. There's no point in starting ELT in Andover because grant money to fund it might run out after a single year and the town could not pay for it. So this only covers one aspect of the arguments that goes against, right? They only list one single claim from the argument, and we had 3 claims. So this is, oh, that's not a good summary. ELT is most useful in districts where test scores are low and dropout rates are high, but Andover does not have these problems. It actually said that they already had high test scores, so they wouldn't need ELT. But this only speaks of one claim as well. So that one is also out. Adding extra time to the school day would allow less time for parents to help their own children, so students' performance might actually suffer from ELT. This was also mentioned, but this was only one claim that was mentioned to go against the argument, go against ELT. So this would not be a good summary. So A is definitely correct because it covers all 3 arguments that were raised in the text, right? So let us now work on our written response. In her article, the author intends to show that future funding of an ELT program in Andover is uncertain. So, future funding is uncertain. Explain how the text supports this idea about the uncertain future of ELT in the town. Use at least 2 details from the text to support your response. Okay? So we can remember in both sections of the article, the author notes that future funding of an ELT program is uncertain. In the pros section, that's where she supported ELT. In that section, she writes that ELT grants guarantee money for only 1 year. While supporters of the program note increasing state funds for ELT, that doesn't change the fact that the grants must be renewed each year. And in the cons section, that's in the opposing section that does not agree with ELT, in the cons section, the author quotes a parent as saying, there's no promise of long-term funding. She also quotes a grant coordinator as saying, it's legitimate concern that the grant will go away. While the writer covers both sides of the story, she clearly intends to show funding is a major issue. All right, so you can record your responses and your evidence to support. Okay, let's go ahead and record our responses. Okay. Thank you for all your hard work throughout this lesson. Now it's time for your small groups. So you're going to complete an argument and claim chart. And during this activity, you are going to be telling me if you agree or disagree with longer school days, and you're going to provide 3 supporting evidences. So you're going to use this chart. So you're going to state your arguments. So your argument could be longer school days. Students will benefit from longer school days. That's your argument. And then you can provide me with 3 evidences to support your claim. If you are against ELT, you're also going to provide the 3 evidences. Okay? While you're working in your small group and on that activity, I'll be working with a group at my table. So please remember the rules of the guided reading group. There should be no talking. You should not interrupt the teacher while she's at the table with a group. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Once again, please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for other videos.